Welcome to Stab the Dragon Productions for episode number 213 and a whiskey comparison coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas on Monday the 21st of April 2025. I have previously reviewed Eagle Rare 10-year and Elmer T. Lee Single Barrel, both coming out of the Buffalo Trace Distillery. So today I wanted to conduct a blind taste test and a comparison to make sure I can tell these two whiskeys apart and decide which one I prefer the most. I poured these two bourbons into blacked out glasses, mixed them up so I don't know which is where. The main criteria is simply taste, mouthfeel, burn, finish. As I see which one I would prefer 3 nights out of 5 if I was offered both of these whiskeys 5 nights in a row. And in case of a tie, price, value, and availability might decide the winner. Eagle Rare 10-year bourbon. This is in glass number 1. Eagle Rare is a 10-year-old 90 proof bourbon, and it shares the number 1 mash bill with its younger brother Buffalo Trace. Owned by Sazerac, this mash bill is the lower rye recipe, and lower rye generally means that the bourbon is sweeter and less spicy. For me to explain what my palate tells me, the Eagle Rare and Buffalo Trace are the tenors in the choir, while Blanton's is the baritone or bass, and Elmer T. Lee is similarly a baritone. The bottle says it's aged 10 years, but others will say that some of the bourbon in there is older. And this bottle my buddy David picked up for me in Virginia for a bit over $40, I think, back in 2024. The price is good for a 10-year bourbon, but the fact is that it is unobtainable for most of us, it seems. I've heard that it was available in Fort Worth recently. I've seen it in one liquor store, but it was paired. I think it was paired with something, so you had to buy two items for just over $100. But the price now is probably going to be over $50. I gave this a score of 84 and a letter grade of A-. Next up, in glass number 2, is the Elmer T. Lee. This is a 90 proof single barrel bourbon using a sour mash and the number 2 mash bill of Buffalo Trace, shared with Ancient Age and Blanton's. This has a higher amount of rye in the recipe, giving the whiskey a deeper, more spicy note. There is no age statement on the bottle or on the website, but some thought goes into this saying 6 to 8 years old. Named for the master distiller at Buffalo Trace Distillery, Elmer T. Lee, who worked at Buffalo Trace and the Stag Distillery before it was renamed Buffalo Trace for 36 years until his retirement in 1985. He passed away in 2013. And again, I paid about $50 for this in January of 2023, and the MSRP was $40. It's now scarce in the US, but more plentiful in Japan, and it is again owned by Ancient Age International, which is a Japanese-owned company. My score when I reviewed this was 87 and a letter grade of a solid A, which shows my preference for the higher rye mash bill. So when I score whiskeys, I like to look at the history and compare them, and I would say that Elmer T. Lee has a slight history advantage over Eagle Rare. And you can see the picture of Elmer T. Lee there in the background. The etching on the bottle is pretty cool. So I'm going to give the history to Elmer T. Lee. But when it comes to the bottle, I think it's going to be about a tie because both of these bottles are classy. Etching on both. The picture on Elmer T. Lee is pretty dramatic, but I don't know. The eagle on the Eagle Rare is also. So I think the bottle and label marketing is about a tie. So let's go to nosing these whiskeys, and I'm going to start with the one on my left. Smells like a bourbon. Usually I can't smell bourbons. My nose is totally inadequate for the task. This smells like a bourbon. Which one? Have no idea. Glass on my right. And I get nothing from the glass on the right. So I think the one on the left has the stronger nose. But again, sometimes if I smell one whiskey and I can actually smell it, the second one I get nothing. My nose is just flawed. All right, so when it comes to nosing, I'm going to say the one on the left is the winner for that. But now let's go to the all-important taste. And I will start on the right because that had the weaker nose. They're both 90 proof, so there's not going to be a proof advantage here. The Eagle Rare does have a years and barrel advantage, though. And that's just good all day long. Whichever one that was. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to tell the difference. Wow. I'm getting some candy on the finish there. What kind of candy was that? I'm not even sure. Not straight up cinnamon, not licorice, but it tasted familiar. Maybe Red Hots? Whichever one this is, it's delicious. That is just an amazing American product there. All right. I'm not even going to hazard a guess. I'll have to taste the glass on the left. All right, the glass on my left had the better nose. Okay, this is going to be impossible. I would have thought I'd be able to easily tell the difference between these two. Wow. This is not going to be possible. Now I'm going to say that the advantage going in was to the Elmer T. Lee. I seem to have liked it more. But on this blind taste, I think I'm going to say the glass on the right. Let's go through this again. They are so close. The mouthfeel and burn, it's about a tie. But the one on my right, I think, has the stronger finish. And it's got this candy that's just on the tip of my tongue. I mean, it's a familiar candy flavor to me, but I can't name it. But that was on the finish in a strong way. So I think that had the stronger finish. As far as the tastes go, there might be a slight advantage to the one on the right. And you know, I'm kind of thinking, see, part of the fun is I got to identify which is which. I'm thinking I'm liking the one on the right the best. if I could just figure out what that candy flavor is. It's not peppermint, it's not cinnamon, it's not licorice. Butterscotch, maybe? All right, going back to the one on my left. Okay. If you're asking me to identify these, well, the winner, I think, is the one on the right. And I really think it's Eagle Rare. This is surprising me. I think it's got a lot more going on than the one on the left, but I kind of think this is the Eagle Rare. And again, I gave advantage to Elmer T. Lee. So I think this is glass number 1, but it is definitely the winner. If I say definitely, it's close, but I think this has more going on. So I think it's glass number 1. Nope, this is glass number 2. My projected favorite, 1, that is Elmer T. Lee for the win, but I really had trouble identifying them. Wow. And see, you know, I've shared both these bottles. David and I, when he brought this to the house, we opened the Eagle Rare right away and did some taste testing with that. Pitted it against Blanton's, if I remember right, and Buffalo Trace. I did not at the time have this Elmer T. Lee, I don't think. But I've opened the Elmer T. Lee, and I thought, I like that better than the Eagle Rare. But despite it being the bottle being down, I've shared this with my son quite a bit. Maybe both sons. So Elmer T. Lee for the win. There you go. Glass number 2. It's just I had trouble identifying them. But the favored mash bill pulls through in the end. So even though I couldn't identify which was which, we have a winner. Now my recommendation, if you tend to like sweeter bourbons like Buffalo Trace, Old Forester 100, Benchmark, then I think you're going to prefer Eagle Rare. But if you tend to be a Jim Beam fan, Old Granddad, Knob Creek, the Elmer T. Lee and Blanton's are going to be for you. But both of these bourbons are classics. They are much sought after. They're on the rare side, so if you can afford the prices at liquor stores, then go for it. But I think these are going, towards $100, between $50 and $100. And if you can afford that, grab it. If you've never had it, I highly recommend it. These are first-class, high-quality American bourbons. If I was ever offered a glass of either whiskey, I would say yes, please, definitely. I would gladly share a glass of either of these. And if I was offered a bottle, even if my cabinet was full, either bottle, I would take it. These are first-class, world-class bourbons, I think. And that's why Buffalo Trace has the reputation that it has, is they put out remarkable products. Well, in conclusion, I am grateful for my friend buying me this bottle of Eagle Rare, and I'm glad I got to try both of these. I really doubt if I'll ever get another bottle of either because they are so hard to obtain and they are pricey. And to be honest, my palate leans toward Texas whiskeys more. And so I'm not focused so much on Kentucky bourbons. But again, Kentucky bourbons are great. I would never turn one down. But if I could find either of these for MSRP, I would go for it. And there's a reason why these are highly sought after. All right, I think next up in this series, we're going to have to open my bottle of Colonel E.H. Taylor bourbon that I have had for quite a while, and I haven't yet opened it. And so we're going to have to do some head-to-head competition with Colonel E.H. Taylor and Eagle Rare and Elmer T. Lee. because there's not much of these left. I would hate for these to go bad on me, so I need to finish them. So let's we'll do that sometime in the near future. For now, this is Stab the Dragon out here.